Welcome to Around the Block, hosted by Terry Sullivan and Chris Gifford, where we share stories of hope, love, and community.
Thanks for joining us today. Another episode of Around the Block. I'm Terry Sullivan, my co-host Chris Gifford.
Hey there.
And our guest today, I'm so excited about this guest because I love her as a person, and I'm glad to have Claire Powell here. Claire, it's good to have you.
Pleased to be here.
Claire is the city manager of Lewisville.
Yes.
And just assumed that role.
3 months ago. 3
months ago. And has already done some wonderful things. We're going to dive into that immediately. But before we get there, Claire, you are by trade an attorney.
Yes, don't hold that against me.
And you were actually a Lewisville city attorney.
Yeah, I'm an assistant city attorney, worked in Lewisville. I started off actually in Dallas and made my way around I represented Frisco, but found my way home to Lewisville, but then decided to have a change of heart and change of career. Actually changed my career it started back before I went to law school. So before I went to law school, I had to study for the LSAT, and I had waited till last minute, and I did not get signed up for the class. So I had to spend double the dollars to get a private tutor, but by gosh darn, I was going to get into law school, right? So I get that tutor, and he tutors me for a while. I'm doing really well. He's like, but finally, before I take the test, he goes, Claire, I got to tell you something. You are incredibly smart, incredibly gifted. You are not an attorney. You should not go to law school. Your personality doesn't match this trade. And what did that make me do? I was like, well, I'm definitely going to law school now. Like, I will prove that man wrong. I got to law school, became a lawyer, and 15 years later decided, this wasn't for me, and changed careers altogether.
So during that 15 years, what law did you practice?
Well, I had started with a small stint in bankruptcy law that lasted 4 months, and I realized my heart couldn't do that, mainly because I was working for a firm who was wanting to sign people up to file for bankruptcy, and I couldn't look at myself when I went home at night, and so I just, without any job, quit the job, and just decided I was going to go figure it out on my own. But then found my way into government, and eventually found my way into, pretty quickly thereafter actually, into working in zoning and land use law, which was really exciting because for me, I know, boring to a lot of people, I get to look at maps. That's really exciting to me. But mostly it was because I was creating the structure to see giant skyscrapers coming out of the ground. And I suddenly felt like I was part of something bigger than myself, which was so important, something I was searching for. And so I found this area of the law where I could be connected to community. I could be connected to building something and building things for our future. And then I just got the bug, and I was like, I'm in public service for the rest of my life.
So you're looking at, obviously during that time, you're looking at different cities in the Metroplex, Dallas-Fort Worth area. You landed in Lewisville. So when you're looking at different cities, what caused you to say, Lewisville is going to be my home?
So I'll be honest, when I came here to Lewisville, I didn't know much about Lewisville. What I did know is when I was driving through Lewisville that there wasn't a lot of high-end development along I-35. That was all I would see going through I-35. I also, but that being said, I knew someone who knew our city attorney and had recommended me. I still had to compete for the job, but I got the opportunity. I will say that what I'd heard about the culture of the city of Lewisville, organizationally, was that it was an amazing place to work. In fact, I think that year it had won in Dallas Morning News, like top employers in the area. So I was intrigued by that and came here and haven't looked back. So I say that. I did have a small stint where I followed money to go work for another entity between when I was a city attorney, assistant city attorney, and became an assistant city manager. But as soon as I left, I knew I was away from home and I needed to get home as fast as possible. So I came running back to Lewisville and said, put me to work wherever you can put me. And there was an opportunity where the prior city manager took a chance on me and basically gave me the job as an assistant city manager, which led me to become city manager ultimately.
So how long as assistant city attorney and the position that you're in now as city manager?
So I was 4 years a little bit over 4 years as the assistant city attorney, and then I was 6 years as the assistant city manager.
So now you're city manager of a thriving city.
Yes.
But there's Lewisville, and then there's Old Town Lewisville.
Right.
One and the same, sort of, right, so to speak. But you get thrown into a position to where you're in a revitalization program for Old Town that, there's just construction everywhere. And we're not all, but most of us are very excited about that.
Sure.
And what Old Town is becoming and where it's going to be in the next 3 to 5 years. But obviously, you were already up to speed with all of that before getting city manager's job. But what is the one thing you go and day one, you're sitting in your office as city manager, you're looking at all the construction going on, you're looking at funding and all that kind of stuff. What's the one thing that surprised you?
The one thing that surprised, gosh, I didn't have a lot of surprises because I was already here. The one thing that surprised me becoming city manager is how people treat you different overnight. And that was weird to me because I thought I'm the same person, and it's not really, they're not treating me different. It's the position, right? So to me, I feel like it's almost like I'm wearing a coat. It's not changing who I am. And I have to think of it that way, right? Because you can't let it change who you are, because you have to bring your same principles, your core beliefs to the job. And hopefully I'm here for 20 years. In 20 years, I want to still be, I'll be changed and a different person, but those same core principles should stay there, right? So to me, I think of it almost like the position is like a coat, and I'm wearing it for a time being, and at the end of the time, I'm going to pass it off to someone else who can hopefully take the reins as well and take the city even further to where I've taken it.
Well, for me, it just meant an extra rack of ribs. That's what I was thinking. Well, here we go. There you go from 1 rack to 2 racks.
Yeah.
So talk about the revitalization of what we refer to, and people that are listening to this podcast and have no clue, we refer to it as Old Town, right, which is the character of Lewisville. Mm-hmm. Talk about the challenges of revitalizing.
Sure. Well, so some of the challenges with Old Town is because we've got, it's not greenfield development. So you go to the Friscos of the world and you just have a bunch of greenfield, makes it a lot cheaper to develop. In Old Town, we're segmented out. We've also had a stint where there was a lot of push towards industrial in the middle of Old Town, right? So now we're trying to create, really expand on the core, this sense of place that we have, but also we're trying to make sure that this is a vibrant live, work, and play environment, right? So it's like a puzzle piece. And not only that, Old Towns always have personalities. So you have very strong, impassioned people. Some of them are like, I don't want you to do anything to change anything. Some people are like, I want you to change everything. There's a lot of people in all different realms in between. And the city tends to get in the mix with all of that. Unfortunately, we would rather everyone just want to go exactly the same direction we're headed, but you've got to temper all of that. And then, it's all about puzzle pieces. And so, connecting you with someone else that might be able to make a partnership there. At the end of the day, what we're trying to achieve in Old Town is authenticity. And the really cool part about having an Old Town that's hard to put these pieces together is that you're not going to have a greenfield development which may look like a McMansion downtown, where it's just cookie cutter and it's made to look old. It really is going to be old. There's going to be gritty aspects to it. There's going to be, high-end apartments where people can come down and go to restaurants and go to entertainment. There should be people that are working down here as well. So we need to have all of that mix to truly have that authenticity in there.
What? I got stuck on there because I had 16 things running through my mind. So let me go back to the first thing. What's the one thing a city manager? Your job is to run the city. Right. That's your job. Right. What's the one thing above all else that you really love about your job?
All right. What I love people. You're a people person too. So the one thing I love about my job is we have what's called the Lewisville Way Award, or the Way Award, and supervisors can give this out to all of their employees, and it's for doing something above and beyond just their normal job. So when I became city manager, I asked our human resources department to send me every single award. So I read every award that's given out, and there's a ton of them, and I handwrite a thank you note to every single employee.
Oh, that's great.
And sometimes it gets, like this weekend, I wrote about 8 or 9 of them. So it takes a while. But I will say I get more out of that than anything, because it connects me to why. It connects me to the why of, why are we here? Why are we doing what we're doing? And what's hard for me is when you move from being a doer to a manager, you get there is a sense of loss. I find value in doing things, right, with my hands and with my mind, and I'm still doing those things, but I have people now that have to do it. Because if I make myself the fulcrum of everything, things will fall apart, right? I need to empower people. My job is to allow other people to do the best work of their lives, right? To empower them to do that.
And that's not always easy.
And it's not. It's hard for me. But when I get to write those letters, it reminds me. I feel connected to those employees. And I am blessed to have a great team. There are 875 of them, and I do not know all of them. But my goal is to meet all of them. So, and the reality is, if we hire and retain the best employees, we provide better services. Every one of them is an extension of our city council and of me. But I can't control how every one of them is going to be and how they're going to interact with everyone. I have to trust. And on top of that, I have to empower. But what can I do to hire the best and to retain them?
So what do you do to implement that type of a culture within the city?
It's a really good question. So there's an author named James Clear, and he wrote Atomic Habits.
Love that book.
Okay.
Love that book.
So we don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems.
Correct.
And so that's one of the things he says in that. And so I take that to mean I can have a goal for having a culture that's, we value people, we build our future, we serve our every day. That's our value statement in Lewisville. But what is my systems in place? It's what are those day-to-day things that you're kind of ingraining in your community or in your organization to where every single employee does that. Me standing over someone saying, be courteous, be nice, and, go above and beyond for every citizen is not going to do anything unless we really truly ingrain it. And I think really where it starts is training. Right. And I think hearing it from the top is important, but it's those frontline managers. Those are the most important people in our organization from a culture standpoint. And so my plan is in the next couple of years is to I want to court those frontline managers. I want to mold them. I want to love on them. I want to make them the best leaders they can possibly be. I want them to be better leaders than I am so that we really can establish a culture.
The one thing that I think hate's probably a strong word, but the one thing that you just go, about your job.
I think that the worst part about my job is that there is a general distrust these days for government. And I think that local government gets put into the mix, and it's become more politicized recently, but gets thrown into the mix with a lot of the federal issues. But I'll tell you what, there are no politics related to fixing a pothole. Like, it doesn't matter what party you are. My job is to fix potholes and to have people fix potholes. And so to me, it's hard for me when, no one's ever met me. They may not know the people that, work long hours. And it is not just a 9-to-5 job working for the city. I mean, it's long hours for folks that there's an automatic distrust instead of starting with, learning, understanding, and trusting. And then, let us prove ourselves to you, right? But that's the one thing I dislike. But there's not a lot you can do to change that other than more engagement, more outreach. I mean, you have to go above and beyond these days as a governmental entity to try to reach the public and to gain that trust. I think we do a fairly good job in Lewisville, but there's always room for improvement.
But, it's not just your job to change the general public's perception of people in politics. How can we help those like you do that? Like how do we have those conversations? How do we actually show the heart behind what you guys do?
I think first it's become educated. So I think, what most people do are reading headlines, right? But we have different programs that we put in place. So we have Citizens University that we put in place, and those people have become liaisons for us. They understand kind of not only the people and the heart behind what we're trying to do. Because I will tell you, the people that government is not for everyone. Working for government is not for everyone. But what I tell people is when you've drunk the Kool-Aid, you've drunk the Kool-Aid. So, and what I say that is because I get to go to work every day and feel like I'm connected to something bigger than myself, that I am making this community better for more people, and following what I think and what the council thinks is correct with regard to trying to better this community. I get to go home and feel like I'm living a righteous life, which is not many people get to do that, right? So I think it's understanding the why. I think it's communicating, getting involved. I think community service is a huge thing. There is a thirst and a hunger, I think, for the average day person to want to be connected to something. Because I think, especially in this day and age with social media and with, online, we're connected, but we're not truly connected in a human way, right? And so I think getting volunteering, getting engaged in that level in your community gives you that. I mean, and when you start, you can't stop. I feel that. I don't know about y'all, but. So
what makes Lewisville so special to you?
One, my family's here and they're living here. My friends are here. But I think Lewisville is special because it is the biggest city I know with the smallest town feel. So it is like Mayberry. Now, a lot of people don't feel that. Some people who aren't connected don't feel that. But I'm telling you, if you can get connected and like you said, like volunteer with the local churches or, volunteer in a nonprofit, there is really the people that are truly engaged in this community are a small, tight-knit group of people.
That's right.
And it feels different.
So how do you help foster those relationships and bring those connections tighter within your role? So
it's hard. I mean, from a government standpoint, to be like, I dictate that you now are connected.
You don't want to do that.
Right. So it has to be authentic. And I think, and I use that term again, it requires individuals that work for the city, including myself, to get engaged with people, but to be consistent engagement. So it is not enough for us. So we have 8% of our population is Chin, which is from Myanmar. They're refugees. It is not enough for us to have one person that just comes in and says, what do you guys need? We should have people that are engaged with that know the leaders of that community, that have long-standing relationships with them, go to church with them, support them, so that when there's a crisis, they know who to come to, right? And that they trust. You have to build trust, and you have to put people in the community and be steadfast about that commitment. Yeah.
Trust is earned in drops, lost in buckets.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Your relationship with city council. I mean, I think we have a great city council, and they have supported me above and beyond here at the restaurant. But how's your relationship? How has it grown in the last 3 months?
By mountains. I mean, it's a lot. So in a city manager form of government, which is what we have in Lewisville, and you don't have that everywhere, but most places in Texas have gone that direction. You have the council, which is in charge of policy. So they tell you, I'm concerned about this, go find a solution to this. And then you have management, which is in charge of operations. So if council doesn't like how I'm operating, they can't change operations. They can just fire me. So that's that's the end of the day.
But I'm done.
Yeah. But I will say that my job is to manage up, as well as, making sure we deal with the policy issues that they put before us. When I say manage up, it's really, my job is to know them so well that I can anticipate how they're going to vote on every issue. So that way my staff isn't working double hard. They get a project, they bring it before council, and it gets shot down. So my job is constantly behind the scenes is like, okay, I know our mayor feels this way about this issue. I know that Councilwoman Green feels about this, maybe feels differently here, but here's the middle ground. And so I'm constantly massaging it, but then working with staff and trying to figure out, well, how do they how do they achieve it in the most expedited fashion? Council represents the public. So to me, and of course we get public engagement, but I will look to council to give us, what is the policy direction you want us to go? And then they reach out to the public, and we have public engagement to help inform them.
20 years from now, you've been
When I
manager.
retire.
Yeah, you've been manager for 20 years.
Yeah.
Let's go 20 years down the road.
Okay.
What if you could architect your legacy? What would it be?
Well, I have two different sides of that coin. So one, I would love the employees to feel that I've done right by them, and that the public feels I've done right by them as well. And I would also like I said before, when I take off that coat, that I'm still quintessentially the same Claire. That because let's be honest, there's a lot. I walk into a room and people immediately turn to me, right? What is your thoughts on this? Where before I didn't have those questions asked necessarily of me all the time. I don't want that to change who I am, because I'm really not the most important person in the room. The title might be the most important in the room, but I'm not. And so I want to leave with that same perspective. And so I'm hoping this is on video so I can watch that 20 years from now, and I can remind myself, and hopefully I can check the box on that.
Well, just in this little bit of talking with you, what you just said of how you want to leave your legacy, it's ingrained in who you are.
Yeah.
It's not something that, like you said, it's not just a coat you put on. It's the core of why you have gone into serving people in this office that you're in.
Right.
And hearing your heart for how you care about both your employees and the general public, hats off to you. You're bringing heart into politics, into how you serve people, and doing things in a more efficient way to where this person's going to be happy and this person's going to be happy, but there might be some give and take. But ultimately, it's a win across the board. I commend you on that.
Well, thank you.
Oh, you're blushing.
I am.
That's pretty phenomenal. That's the heart that you bring every day to this role that you're in, and just that's you though.
It is. It is me. My mom. He loves his mother. I love my mother too. My mother taught me at an early age. She said, God put us all here to be ourselves and ingrained us with our own special gifts. And it is our job in this world to figure out what those gifts are and how to use them to better this world. And so I will tell you, for example, Terry is amazing at smoking a brisket, but he's also amazing at creating community, which, that's his expertise, right? And I think you found your calling. And for me, I think I'm really good at writing and communicating and listening to people and kind of finding puzzle pieces to put together. And I feel like my calling was this job, and not a fanatical sense. I just feel like my skills are best used to serve this community.
Found your sweet spot. And I will tell you that without exception, when Claire's name comes up, Chris, people light up because she is doing a phenomenal job. She has found her calling. Everything that she has done in life brought her to where she is today and to make a difference, and she is making a difference. So Claire's husband.
Oh, Lord. He's a great man.
Claire's husband loves to smoke meat like I do, and is good at it. So Claire tells me that she's bringing him in on Saturday night, months back, and that he's very particular.
Right.
Well, he's been asking me before I took him. He was like, so is his brisket better than my brisket?
Well, that's a lot of questions.
Yeah,
answer
for
to your
sure.
husband.
You do not answer that question ever, except other than, which of course, honey, your brisket is better than Terry's brisket. But you don't answer it any other way, even if it weren't true. So anyway, that's
recorded.
So she brings him in. She tells me he's coming, brings him in, and they order sit down. We're sitting. She's facing me. His back is against the counter. So I take this brisket that we spend a lot of time making right. And I know he's coming, so I'm preparing his plate. And I put this brisket in the microwave for about 6 minutes. and I put it
This is truth.
on his plate. And so I tell the servers, I said, stay out of the way because I want to view this. I'm behind block cutting meat. And she set the plate down, and the brisket looks like it's years old.
It looks so gross.
And I'm watching Claire, and of course you can't see, maybe I can't depict this exactly the way it was, but I'm seeing this face that I've never seen before because it's all contorted.
I know. I was like,
it's all contorted. She's looking at
literally, my head turned to the side. I was kind of looking at it, and my husband's about to cut into it, and I'm just like, that just doesn't look right.
See, this is why you can't tell Terry you're going to bring someone in.
I know.
Because Terry, this is one of the things I love about Terry, though, is he finds a unique way to connect with everybody.
Absolutely.
And he leaves his mark on
you feel
someone.
Special.
You are, because everyone in that moment that they're face to face with Terry, they're his favorite person.
Absolutely.
No one else matters, but everybody matters.
Yep.
He loves people. That was one of the things when we were talking about this podcast. We got to go back to the story, though.
That's all.
I asked Terry, I said, Terry, why do we need to do a podcast? He said, this restaurant's my ministry. He
True.
loves serving people. And even though you're pranking her poor husband.
Yeah, my poor husband.
You were serving him.
So, the end of that story is I had to rescue because I could see that she was about to fall out of her chair, and I didn't want him to. And he was trying to starting.
He was like trying to be nice about it.
Yes, he was. He was trying to be nice about it, and but you can know what he was thinking. He was thinking, "This is the worst piece of meat I've ever seen in my life." So we take him his actual plate and rescue him, and Claire goes, "Oh, Claire goes." Oh,
thank God. I couldn't believe he did that to me.
I can totally believe Terry did that.
Claire, thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure.
You're just a joy to be with, and this is a great show, and I just appreciate you coming.
Well,
thank you for all that you're doing for Lewisville. Thank you for all that you're doing for Lewisville, and for all of us who are in business here in Lewisville. It's very unique.
Well, you're part of Old Town's authenticity, and you gotta love on that and just build that. So
I appreciate
absolutely.
It. Thank you.
Yeah.
That concludes our episode today.
Okay.
Thank you, Claire.
Yeah, no problem.
That's it for this episode of Around the Block. Be sure to check back each Friday for new episodes. Produced by The Story Concept. Copyright 2022.